Welcome to the Putback on SNY.TV. I'm Ian Begley, SNY's NBA insider, and we've got a great show for you guys today. We're going to spend the next half hour or so breaking down Knicks-Pistons with my friend and yours, CP the Fanchise of Knicks Fan TV, and Pistons beat writer from MLive Kory Woods. Guys, let's jump right into it with the baseline, as we always do. Last night, not a good night for the home team at Madison Square Garden. Knicks looking very disjointed on offense. Couldn't get a win against a Pistons team that was without Isaiah Stewart. Series tied 1-1 going to Detroit Thursday, Game 3. CP, your thoughts?
Yeah, it was a disappointing performance, Ian, because on the backs of Game 1, where they really needed that 20-0 or 20-1 run to come back and win that game, I expected the Knicks to come back with a more focused energy and execution in Game 2. And then once again, they found themselves down by as much as 15 points in this game and needed another miracle comeback to try to win it. But by and large, Ian, I did not like the approach from the captain in this game in Jalen Brunson. I thought it was way too much isolation basketball, way too much hero ball, a lack of trust in his teammates, and a second half usage rate of 46%. I've been saying it since this playoff started. This should be a different playoff for Jalen Brunson because now he has help, but he has to lean on that help. And so for Karl-Anthony Towns to only have 3 shot attempts in the second half and none in the fourth quarter, there's a serious adjustment that this Knicks team needs to make, or they're going to be going to Cancun early.
1, 2, 3, Cancun. Kory, did this surprise you last night? The Pistons, shorthanded in the Garden, pulling out a win. I mean, what were your takeaways from watching that game?
Well, it did surprise me with how well they played defensively with Isaiah Stewart out. I mean, he's been their best slow post defender all season long. So for them to be able to, have Karl-Anthony Towns only have 10 points and 0 shot attempts in the last period was pretty surprising. I mean, just also just giving away that Game 1 it turned out. I mean, if you can argue pretty much if it were not for that 21-0 run, this could be a 2-0 lead by Detroit. You could argue it with the way that they've come in there and just showed their composure in Madison Square Garden, but one thing that did not shock me was just the way that Detroit defended in the second game. Under JB Bickerstaff, they've been defensively sound all season long. This from that first game, what shocked me was them not getting any type of points in that 21-0 run. So the way they bounced back yesterday did not shock me too much. It was more so of the team that I pretty much have been seeing all season long and expect them to play like.
Yeah, impressive night for Cade Cunningham after Game 1, where Knicks, I thought, did a pretty good job on him. CP, he got going last night. And when were you in the building last night?
Yes, I was in the building last night. Yep.
What did you see from him that looked different?
Attacking and getting downhill. And that was part of the issue there for the Knicks. I expected the Pistons to get what I would call a Game 2 whistle, which is, putting pressure on the rim and forcing the referees to make a call there. But what I did like about Cade Cunningham is that a lot of times he didn't wait for the Knicks to send that pressure. He was attacking downhill, especially off of the live rebounds. He was going straight to the basket. And in those situations when, in certain respects, you have Karl-Anthony Towns as your last line of defense, it's easy money there. It's first to the cup, and Cade Cunningham was very, very aggressive. Additionally, they drew Jalen Brunson into those pick-and-roll actions several times, and they benefited from that. Cade Cunningham was able to get himself free and able to step into some mid-range shots where he is a very good basketball player. So it was a great adjustment by Cade. I expected that. But again, just the lack of defensive adjustments by the Knicks was disappointing at the same time.
It's funny, you mentioned the free throws. That was a big topic of conversation, starting with Tom Thibodeau after the game. And I was talking to another former coach, a longtime NBA coach, and he was saying, look, Detroit took the ball to the basket. The Knicks, sure, they were getting fouled on the perimeter. You could kind of take it or leave it. I understand the frustration, but they weren't taking the ball to the basket like the Pistons were. The Pistons were forcing the issue. The Knicks were not. So, yes, big free throw discrepancy. You can certainly argue that the Knicks maybe didn't get a fair whistle, but I thought this coach just made an interesting point that I hadn't thought about with regards to Pistons attacking, Knicks not attacking as much. And Kory, first of all, I should say first Pistons playoff win since 2008. How's the city with this team? Are they rallying around it? Is it like not the level of the Lions, but do they get around the Pistons when they're good? How's the city feeling?
Well, the city of Detroit loves the Detroit Pistons when they're winning. I mean, they love all of their teams when they're winning. I will say this: I think when the Lions are winning, that is a whole different beast in itself. So let's not. I don't even want to do the comparison on that. But right now, this city is buzzing off of the Pistons. Just like you just said, first playoff win since '08. It's a really big monumental feeling, a big monkey off the back. I mean, the last time they played in the playoffs, they were swept out. The last two times they were in the playoffs. So this is a big victory for them. And they're expecting big things from this team moving forward. I mean, they're arguably a year and a half ahead of their rebuild to where they should be. So everybody's starting to latch on pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's been a fantastic season, man. Credit to Trajan Langdon, JB Bickerstaff, and all the guys who've contributed. If you're not a Knick fan and you're looking at this thing from the outside, it's one of the fun things about sports when you can see a group kind of come together like the Pistons have. But nobody in New York wants to hear that right now. So CP,
yeah, probably not.
Fourth quarter approach, man. Fourth quarter approach. We mentioned Karl Towns earlier. No shots in the fourth, just 3 shots in the second half. And you can talk about the coaching staff. You could talk about his teammates. You could talk about Towns as himself as far as why that happened and what went wrong. Your view on it.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of all three. It's on Tibbs to devise a play for him. It's on the captain to get him the ball, Ian. I mean, if the three of us are sitting here playing basketball, I don't need a coach to tell me to pass you the ball when we're not getting into a rhythm. That's on Jalen Brunson. He's an all-star point guard. He's been doing this for years at a high level, and only 12 passes. Shout out to Tommy Beer for this stat. He's passed the ball to Karl-Anthony Towns 12 times total in this series. Where is the two-man game between your two all-stars? Where is the pick and pop? We saw, and I think it was my guys over at Knicks Film School, showed a play early in the game where Jalen's going one on 4. He's got Karl-Anthony Towns wide open for a pop-out 3. You've got to see that as a point guard, as a floor general, to get your guys involved. The Knicks right now are trying way too hard against a Pistons defense, but they're not playing smart. You have to move the ball against a stingy defense like this that is loaded with athleticism and speed and size in certain respects. And Karl-Anthony Towns with Tobias Harris on him, look, I wouldn't consider anything an easy matchup, but he has a beneficial matchup there. You've got to go to him. 0 free throw attempts for Karl-Anthony Towns, 0 shots in the fourth quarter. They've got to get back to the drawing board and get the big bodega involved.
And you mentioned earlier, or you tweeted, I should say, and I think you talked about it on your show, Knicks Fan TV, last night. And by the way, before I get to this, Knicks Fan TV watch party at Ainsworth in Manhattan on East 33rd for games 3 and 4. The website to find the tickets is kftvwatch.com. So you know what that atmosphere is going to be like in there if you want to be around Knick fans, passionate Knick fans watching games 3 and 4. CP, you were talking about, hey, the Knicks need to start Mitch. I saw that right? You were saying yes. Mitch over Josh Hart, and I want to ask you your thoughts on that lineup change. I don't think it'll happen, but I want to hear your thoughts on it.
I don't think it'll happen, but it's me advocating for what is necessary for this team, and that is more defense and more rebounding. Ian, they lost the rebounding battle by 14 points. 14 yesterday, 48-34. They had 7 offensive rebounds for the entire game. If you're going to be throwing shots up like they do, you need boards. And Karl-Anthony Towns, listen, he's a decent rebounder for his size, but he's not an opportunistic rebounder. That is Mitchell Robinson. He has that knack for the ball. You need Mitch's size out there as well defensively. And I think if you have Mitchell Robinson out there helping you get those offensive rebounds, you can limit Cade and these guys from getting out into transition and doing what they do best. But here it is in the fourth quarter. You're trying to get stops, and you don't have all of your best defenders out there. Look, the Hart situation, I love Hart. He's Mr. Intangibles for this team. But if you're going to have him out there being a negative on the offensive side, and his defense has now been consistently porous, then we've got to make that change. The Block Nest Monster, Mitchell Robinson, needs those minutes with Karl-Anthony Towns to help him. And in the event things break down on the perimeter, to slow down and disrupt the Pistons' rhythm. 20 minutes last night, and he's parked on the bench in the fourth quarter. And then Tom Thibodeau saying, "Oh man, we got killed on the boards." Well, where's your best rebounder? He's on the bench. That needs to be adjusted.
I thought that was an interesting, I think, admission from the coach, and maybe he didn't intend to have it taken that way, but it's obvious that it was, and it's obvious why it was, because the question was about why he went to Mitchell Robinson. I think it was first half. There was a stretch where he's in there for a while. I think he closed the first half with Mitch. Might be wrong on that, but there was a long stretch where he's in there, and Thibodeau was asked about it, and he said Mitchell Robinson was the only one who was rebounding, and a minute earlier he had said rebounding was the big difference in this game. So maybe CP, you do see more Mitchell Robinson, but the A to B logic didn't flow in that post-game press conference. And I don't want to make too much of what players, coaches say or don't say in the post-game pressers, because sometimes it's kind of boilerplate stuff and they're speaking off the cuff extemporaneously and that stuff happens. But this was a glaring one last night. So, I do wonder if you do see more Mitchell Robinson and Kory. No Isaiah Stewart, but I thought Jalen Duren really impacted the game last night. What does he look like to you in this year for him? How important has he been for the Pistons team? And were you surprised at all with what you saw last night?
Well, I'll start with the second parts first. I wasn't too surprised by last night's efforts. I mean, I thought the Pistons did a good job of cross-matching Harris cross-matching Harris on the Towns and letting Duren go ahead and get on the Hart, which, let him roam a little bit as a defender, and that, clogged up some driving areas and, disrupt the Towns rhythm. But when you talk about Jalen Duren and his maturation, I mean, I think the growth he has had under Bickerstaff this season has been monumental, and I think it can only grow from here because, hey, just based off of Bickerstaff's production as the coach and what they've done this year, Pistons are not getting rid of a coach this year. And what I mean by that is in each of Duren's first 3 years in the league, he's had a different head coach, a different big man coach, a different system to learn under. And having that lack of continuity can, disrupt any player, especially one that is as young as he is. So the fact that he's been able to kind of find his footing in the back half of the season, working with those guys, working with Sidney Lowe and Bickerstaff and his crew, I think it's been very, very beneficial for the Pistons. I think we can only see him continue to grow as a defender moving forward and in this series. But I think it was just a really good effort and a really good game plan by the Pistons last night to kind of switch things up with the way they did with Stewart being sidelined.
Yeah, Kory, you mentioned JB Bickerstaff and the revolving door with the Pistons coaches prior to that. Bickerstaff has been fantastic, and continuity is something that all NBA teams strive for. And I'm going to flip us right now to the What We Learned segment of the show to talk a little bit more about coaching. What We Learned is presented by Binghamton University. It was named the top school in the SUNY system according to recent rankings from the Wall Street Journal and Forbes. Visit binghamton.edu for more. So let's talk about the coaching on the other side with Tom Thibodeau. Anytime you lose playoff game, coach is going to get blamed. That's just how it is in pro sports, particularly in New York. Now, I said before the series that if the Knicks did lose to the Pistons or have a really poor showing, there was going to be hard conversations after this season about everything, including Tom Thibodeau. And I still believe that, his seat would be very hot if they lost this series. I can't tell you how Jim Dolan, Knicks owner, or team president Leon Rose is going to look at this season if and when it ends early, because, that'll ultimately be their decision. They look at it and say, hey, we need a new voice. and then make a coaching change. We'll see. But that's certainly, as far as what I know, was an outcome that was on the table coming into this thing. And here we are, 1-1, pivotal time for Tom Thibodeau. Pivotal time to me also for a Knick team that won 51 games. But to me, 50-win team has a Pistons team coming off that fourth quarter game one where that run has to take a lot out of you, and they're going into game two with no Isaiah Stewart. A 50-win team at home wins that game, a real 50-win team. So is this 50 wins, is it a product of them beating on bad teams and them not really having what it takes to get through against a good team? We're going to find out Thursday, Friday. I mean, it's clear as day that the talent gap is large here. Knicks, Pistons, and it hasn't played out that way on the floor. And if it continues this way, obviously, Tom Thibodeau is going to get a lot of scrutiny in the aftermath of it. CP, I'm curious for you, how do you view the Knick coaching situation? I mean, let's not even go further than where we are right now, but how do you view Thibodeau at the moment?
He's got to be better. He's got to be better at utilizing the talent that he has. We can look at the roster construction and are these guys the best together? We can talk about, is the grit missing from last year? All of that is valid, but simple things like they did not trade for Karl-Anthony Towns to have him shoot 3 times in the second half and none in the fourth quarter. As the coach, you have to devise schemes to get him going. This is your big man. This is the guy, one of your most efficient three-point shooters. The lack of a two-man game, I was hoping that we would see more of this in the playoffs, because if that's not the case, then what was the point of bringing him here? Look, I love Jalen. He should be winning the Clutch Player of the Year award, but he has to be getting his guys involved, and that is also on the coach to make sure that the offense is flowing, because if not, they are playing right into the Pistons' hands. You have to make this defense work. We've seen several times throughout the regular season that when this Knicks team racks up over 30 assists, they get W's. They're about 20-2 or something of that nature when they do that. They're capable of doing it, but they have to move the ball. You have to have more cutting and not standing around watching one guy make his moves. And also, limit the complaints with the referees. You're going to be stacked up against it. This is the playoffs, so they have to play through that adversity. But again, it's on Tibbs to make sure that he's got the proper rotations out there and that he's maximizing the talent that he has. And so far in these 2 games, it's been questionable.
It's interesting, CP, because we're talking about Karl Towns earlier, and we're talking to those guys after the game about Towns and his number of shots in the second half. Tom Thibodeau said basically Towns was doing what he would have wanted him to do. He wouldn't want him to force shots. And so he was playing, I guess, the role of a decoy or trying to draw a defense and find an open look for his teammates. And that's what Thibodeau wanted. And Karl Towns said, he was doing what was expected of him. He was doing what I assume the coaching staff had asked of him before the game. So if that was the plan and Towns was executing it, then the breakdown lies somewhere else. Yes, Jalen Brunson's shooting, the turnovers were high. Mikal Bridges, if he hits one of those 4 shots in the fourth quarter, it's probably a different story today. There are many places to look, but if that was the plan for Towns to be that decoy, that was working, there's got to be something different here going into game 3. And look, they say sometimes games 1 and 2, that's the biggest game for a head coach in a playoff series because that's where your initial adjustments are. Let's see what happens here with the Knicks in 3 and 4. I mean, the talent gap, I believe, is very significant. So if they play to their talent, the Knicks should win these games and take care of this series easily. But everything that happened in game 2 and most of what happened in game 1 gives you pause. And if it continues this way, just wonder about head coach Tom Thibodeau. I don't think he should lose his job. I think continuity is important. But again, it's not up to me. It's up to Leon Rose and James Dolan, and we'll see where it goes. And Kory, for you, being around JB Bickerstaff, what has he done? Is it pushing the right buttons? Is it communicating with players? Is it schemes? What has he done that just wasn't happening in the past on the Detroit sideline?
Well, if you talk to any of the players in the locker room, specifically their leaders like Cade Cunningham, Isaiah Stewart, some of the guys that have been there, the one thing that JB Bickerstaff did come in there on day one is he told them the truth. And then, in Isaiah Stewart's words, he didn't sell us any stories. He told us the way that it was going to be from day one and what he demanded and what his expectations were. And what you saw is a team that was just hungry to win and hungry to prove that, hey, what happened last year, that 14-68 record, that league record losing streak, that is not us. There was at least, I think there was one point, and I can't recall the game exactly, but I believe the Pistons were, it was after the game, they were like 2-26, and Cade Cunningham said, no way are we this bad. And when JB Bickerstaff first got hired, he said, hey, it's not like the cupboard here is bare. So what Bickerstaff did was he came in there and he had a bunch of guys that were just hungry to win and learn how to win. And having a guy that was able to be relatable to them and come down to their level and just push the right buttons and speak to them in a way of uplifting their talents, that is why you're seeing the way they were able to turn things around. And also, too, you have to credit Trajan Langdon for what he did in the offseason. One thing that Detroit lacked last year is they lacked the spacing surrounding Cade Cunningham. He did not have the shooters that he has right now. He didn't have a Tim Hardaway. He didn't have a Tobias Harris. He didn't have a Malik Beasley who went on to hit 300 threes from as a reserve. And so couple on the dot by bringing in all of those savvy veterans and then adding a sneaky one at the trade deadline with Dennis Schroeder. Now you're starting to see a team that is able to learn how to win because they have the savvy veterans around them. They have the guys being available to play, which is something that hurt them a lot last year. And they have a coach that is, with no disrespect to Monty Williams, a coach that is a lot more invested in pushing this team to where they need to be.
It's just been an interesting turnaround in Detroit, and great job by the Pistons. I know Tom Gores was at game one. I'm sure he was somewhere at game two. I didn't see him, but I'm sure they were having a lot of fun with Pistons winning their first playoff game since 2008. And you mentioned Schroeder. I mean, this team, Detroit, shot 5 for 25 to start out game two from beyond the arc. And the Knicks losing a game where the opponent shoots that poorly from beyond the arc, I don't think you're going to get that bad of a shooting performance again from this Pistons team in this series. So a squandered opportunity, CP. Mikal Bridges, guy we've talked about a lot all season long, hit shots early on last night, didn't make shots in the fourth quarter. Nobody really did. Your thoughts on Bridges so far, and where are you on? Should he do more offensively? Is he where he is? Was he where he should be offensively?
Yeah, I mean, on the Schroeder point, that was my X factor for the Pistons in this series, and 20 points off the bench from Schroeder just absolutely dissected us, and it allows Cade to play off ball, and now you have two dynamic ball handlers in the backcourt, putting more pressure on Jalen Brunson and Josh Hart to be on the same page, and we saw yet again another defensive breakdown at a key spot in crunch time. So that was disappointing to see. On the Mikal Bridges front, I thought he started the game off fairly well. I felt like he should have been in a little bit earlier in the fourth quarter. And again, they need to go back to him to get him back into a rhythm. Nevertheless, he had some clutch opportunities in crunch time, and he just didn't hit. He did not hit. Some of those shots go in. We're speaking a different tune today. But I want to keep going back to Mikal Bridges. Look, you traded the 5 picks for him. Continue to get him involved. In game one, I thought his defense was pretty good. Offensively, only 8 points. And I spoke about it yesterday that I expected him to get more involved in the game in game two. He did. He had his opportunities, but he just was not there. He has to be an outlet for Jalen Brunson. I want to see them going back to him. Is there a moment where he can maybe lead that second unit? Because the Knicks' second unit is in dire straits right now. Allowing Mikal Bridges running some plays for him to allow him to get into his mid-range game. That is his strength. And I want to see the Knicks go to that in game three as well.
And it's interesting. I mean, Brunson, I'm sure he would say he didn't play up to his standard in game two, but they still had a shot to win this game in the fourth. And it was right there. And Bridges, one of those shots goes down. And maybe we're talking about a different series right now. And I'm just curious, Kory, for you, this point guard battle, and we're talking about Schroeder. as the backup, but he is playing a lot of minutes and he's impacting this team in a big way. I know Detroit was looking for a ball handler, secondary ball handler at the deadline. They obviously got a great one in Schroeder. How has he impacted the group? Is this what you've seen from him all year long?
Yeah, it's definitely what we've seen from here all year all long. Just been able to take some of the pressure off of Cade. His percentages have been a little bit up and down, but I mean, this game two was just he was just pretty much just lights out. 20 points off the bench, and I thought that was a really big key thing in game two. I mean, the Pistons bench outscored the Knicks 35-8, and what Schroeder has done for this Pistons team, with especially with Ivy being down, is you have a veteran guard on the court that is already battle tested just from playoff experience, world basketball playing experience, and he's been able to kind of settle things down. I believe Trajan Langdon called him somewhat of like a fearless leader, so to say, out there on the court, to kind of be able to keep the waters calm and keep guys from kind of overreacting, keep that anxiety down. And you need that with a young team that has never been in this spot before. So I think that is what Schroeder has brought to this team. Just his experience in battle testing, his awareness of what to do in the right moment. And we saw him just down the stretches play big and not shy away from the moment.
Yeah, impressive night last night for the veteran. And veteran on the other side, backup point guard Cam Payne, did not see a lot of minutes at all after that game one performance in the fourth quarter where he essentially won the Knicks the game. He did not play at all. The Knicks have not said anything about an injury to Cam Payne. So as far as we know, information available, he was healthy. We'll find out more tomorrow. The Knicks, I think we'll be able to talk to Tom Thibodeau tomorrow or the next day. We'll find out more, but nothing has been announced about an injury. So this was on its face just a coach's decision going away from a player in Payne who I thought, CP, I thought he looked a little bit out of sorts when he was on the floor in the first half, foul trouble. But Thibodeau, I thought might go back to him. It didn't happen. What did you think about the Cam Payne usage in particular last night?
Yeah, that's why I call him Cardiac Cam, Ian. He's a perfect player for these cardiac Knicks because it's a flip of a coin in terms of what you're going to get from him on a given night. He was brilliant in game one. And game two, as you said, he was a bit out of sorts. He picks up the 3 fouls early in that first half, and you never heard from him again. But nevertheless, I think, Landry Shamet has been a non-factor in these 2 games. Deuce McBride has been disappointing to me in these 2 games, and the Knicks have no choice but to go to a Cam Payne in certain spots off the bench because just as Corey mentioned in terms of Schroeder's ability in playing alongside Cade, look, Cam Payne is not in Dennis Schroeder's class, but I think the Knicks could use some additional ball handling to alleviate the stress on Jalen Brunson to have to pound the air out of the ball every time. And so we did see that unit with Brunson and Cam Payne. It was Karl-Anthony Towns, who's OG in that fourth quarter lineup in the first game. That rotation was quite effective. And so that may be a look that the Knicks want to go to allow Jalen Brunson some off-ball opportunities to get the ball moving a little bit and allow the Knicks to play a little bit faster. Ian, I don't like the way that they walk the ball up the floor. They're not getting defense to offense to get more transition opportunities. Again, you're playing into the hands of a scrappy, athletic, fast Detroit Pistons defense. You're not making them work. And maybe some additional ball handling from Cam Payne can help alleviate some of that.
It's interesting. CP Josh Hart said the same thing in the locker room last night. He said, we got to play a little faster. We were playing too slow. We want to pick the pace up a little bit, force the defense to react. Put pressure on the defense in that sense. And so you and Hart on the same page on that one. Isaiah Stewart, Corey, what do you think about the injury? Where is he with that? Where are the Pistons on that? Do you think we see him game 3?
Just knowing the competitor that Isaiah Stewart is, if the doctors clear him to go, he's going to be out on the court, even if Bickerstaff wants to kind of rest him a little bit to kind of like get his legs under him and make sure that he's ready for the rest of the series. But right now, I have not heard anything yet as far as his condition. They are not practicing today. They're not allowing us to practice today if they're having one. But yeah, I think if he's able to go, he's a guy that's been able to just find a way to play through being hurt. If he's injured, he's out. But if he's just hurt, he's going to be out there on the floor because he's their longest tenured Piston, which is kind of crazy to say at only 5 years, but he's the longest tenured Piston on that team, and he's been waiting for this moment since he's gotten the league. And he pretty much has said that there's going to be nothing that's going to keep him out of it. So I would expect him to go if everything kind of looks good as far as that leg, but it remains to be seen. We haven't heard anything just yet.
Right. And I think that tells you, too, how bad the injury is, the fact that he didn't go in game 2. And we noted after game 1 that it was so significant that he had to get imaging. And, the results of that imaging, we don't know what the results are, but clearly it wasn't a good thing. And, I will say this, in the aftermath of game 1, I just heard some pessimism about how he will look for the rest of the series. So if he could play, maybe he's hobbled, and it's unfortunate. I mean, take your fandom out of it. Guy who's been waiting so long to get to this place. Really early on in game 1, he came down. I think it was off of maybe an alley-oop or a putback, and he landed funny, and then he was moving funny for the rest of the game 1. So I think even if he comes back, he's going to be impacted by that injury, but it's going to be interesting to see where it goes. Obviously, going into game 3, game 4 in Detroit. And a quick one, Kory, for you. I know that Knick fans, they're talking a lot about how they're being barred from the building, game 3 and 4. And I'm just wondering, man, what do you expect in terms of a crowd for those games in Detroit? You think it's going to be like Philly last year where the Knick fan outnumbered almost the Sixers fan, or do you think it'll be dominated by the Detroit fans?
I'll phrase it like this. There was a point last season with I believe Adam Silver was in the building, and I know Tom Gores was in there, where the Pistons were getting blown out. I want to say it was by the Jazz. I could be wrong. There was a sell the team chant that was so loud that it echoed all throughout Little Caesars Arena. So I say that to say that now with this being a playoff team, I believe that it's going to be a hornet's nest. People are waiting to be able to spend money to come see this Pistons team play meaningful basketball. Yes, they did have a playoff series under Dwayne Casey, but when they were going up against the Bucks, but nobody really even thought they had a chance. I mean, Blake Griffin was on one leg, and nobody really gave that team a shot. They really do feel like this Pistons team has a chance against the Knicks. And while I don't want to say there's a Pistons-Knicks rivalry, I will say, with Detroit's Detroit, New York's New York, and both cities, kind of have like their own little fun, little banter back and forth, just in general. So I think that Thursday and Sunday is going to be a hot Pistons crowd. They've been waiting for this moment, waiting for a chance to see a legit team that could possibly do something special at the LCA. And I don't know about that, how many Knicks fans are going to be in there. We know they travel well. We know they're all over, but I think it's going to be a lot of blue, red, and white in that building.
Yeah, I think hopefully there's some alumni, too, because the Knicks have done a good job with their alumni. I know that Chauncey Billups is busy. He's got a job to do, but maybe like a Rasheed Wallace or other guys from that team, Ben Wallace, it'd be fun to see those guys in the building. And yeah, I saw something on Twitter. I haven't verified it, but flying to Detroit, hotel in Detroit, tickets to the game cheaper than a Knick ticket, which is the same thing last year in the Philly series, which is wild. But we are going to transition, gentlemen, to a segment called the Talkback with my friend, your friend, Matt Spendley, the Big Spend. He's going to be relaying some questions from you guys to us, and we'll get into it right now.
What's up, guys? How we doing today? CP, want to start right with you, man. So, Luke on YouTube, the front office knew what they wanted the offense to look like when they traded for Cat. They have to be annoyed at what Tibbs has them doing. So, let's get specific, because I know you mentioned also about Brunson in the fourth, not loving his process, the amount of touches Cat had in the second half. What needs to change for Game 3? Let's assume the Knicks and Pistons are in another kind of rock fight at the end of the game, and the offense is coming down to it. What do you need to see from Brunson and Cat and the rest of the offense?
Starts with the ball movement. They've got to move the ball and trust one another and stop trying to win the game one possession in one possession. Stop forcing the issue. They have to be aggressive. And one of the things with Cap, one of the things with Jalen Brunson right now is, I don't know if it's the ankle or just the athleticism of the Pistons, he's not getting that separation off the starting block. So he has to use a lot of his pivots. He has to use a lot of his pump fakes. And look, that's going to take a lot of energy out of you. For me, dump it down on Karl-Anthony Towns. Let him draw some pressure on Tobias Harris, and maybe you have some cutting Knicks off of establishing Towns in the post, or maybe you establish him in the pinch post and you have some cutters there, or maybe, hey, allow Karl-Anthony Towns to shoot the ball. I think the Knicks have to go to him, get him in a rhythm, and allow him to use his gravity to also make his teammates better.
It really felt like, too, they did not get him the ball on the low block either. Sometimes with your big man, it's get him close to the paint, close to the rim, and let him go to work. Kory, I want to talk a little bit about Cade also, because obviously he had a great game, and he's kind of the engine of the Pistons. And the Knicks threw OG Anunoby at Cade, and we kind of saw this sometimes when OG's on the perimeter. Obviously that lateral quickness is not always his number one skill. So I was curious for you watching Cade last night, how you thought the Knicks defended him and how they can kind of adjust as the series keeps going.
I thought the Knicks defended Cade as well as they could, but what we're seeing right now is this was a quicker Cade than I've seen in recent years. I mean, he was a little bit slower over the past couple years, but last night, and then I'll come on. Let's start back at game one. Game one, they fitted him great, frustrated him. I think I don't want to say the moment got a little bit too big for him, but it's playoff basketball. First playoff game, probably has some jitters. We all know how Tom Thibodeau is, so they did a great job on him. But I believe when I heard him say after that game that it was fun, I'm like, okay, maybe he's probably about to get a little bit more loose in game two. He kind of like, so okay, this is what playoff basketball is. Now I can kind of, free myself up a little bit. And we saw that in game two. You're just seeing a top-notch player, an all-NBA type talent coming to his own, and he's playing quicker than he's ever been. He's in the best shape that he's been in since being in the league, played the most games that he's played since being in the league, and he just gave the Knicks that work.
And I'm sure he'll be energized coming back home too.
Yeah.
CP, I want to come back to you for one. This was just an anecdote or a thought from me watching yesterday, and you mentioned it before. The officiating was obviously a big conversation, but I thought how Brunson and Hart specifically kind of reacted to that. Brunson celebrating when Thompson fouled out. I know that he's done that six fingers thing in the regular season too, where he's excited to foul a guy out, but it felt a little bit, I think at times, and this is just my opinion, like he was looking for contact to make a point versus kind of focusing on pushing the offense forward. So I'm curious for you watching how the officiating impacted the game and knowing it's the playoffs, it's going to be officiated different, how you think they can be better for the rest of the series.
Fight through the adversity. I was not surprised at the disparity yesterday. I expect in game two, and I haven't looked at the stats in terms of verifying these things, but just through the 30 plus years of me watching basketball, the team that is typically down 1-0, when they play with that sense of desperation, they will typically get the benefit of the whistle. So I expected it even going into this game. For the Knicks, you have to stop the crying and fight through the adversity. But again, one of the issues is when they're not playing fast and they're in the half court, if you're not going to Towns in the post and trying to draw contact, he had 0 free throw attempts. OG right now is their most reliable slasher with the ball in his hands in terms of getting to the cup. He had 2 free throw attempts, and you're just settling for jumpers. You're not exactly putting a lot of pressure on the Zebras to help you out there. So the Knicks just have to be much more aggressive and fight through it, understanding that this is the playoffs. This is gut check time.
Absolutely. And each game is different. All right, Ian, I want to come to you with the last one off of, Jalen and Josh also. Just curious for you being around these guys all the time, feeling like it's the playoffs, they're 100% locked in. I know you spoke with Josh a little bit just about the podcast, all that kind of things that kind of surround them. I know there was, some people that said during the season, are they doing the podcast too much? Every time they lose the pod. So I want to know from your standpoint, as you're around the team, how you feel about that as the playoffs are underway now.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was actually going to write about like who they're scheduling for the show during the playoffs. I just assumed that they would be doing it. And so I was asking Josh, how do you schedule stuff during the playoffs? And he said, we're not doing anything during the series. Maybe if they get through the series, he said if we're lucky enough to get through, maybe a recap, but nothing during the games. So, and look, I mean, the podcast in general, I think they addressed it well on their show, so you can go check it out. But these guys are not robots. They're going to have their hobbies off the court, and that's how it should be. And whatever that hobby is, if it's podcasting, then that's pretty healthy, and that's not something to be too worried about. But I do think too, like, I'm not going to claim that I know either of these guys like well. Just being around them though, past couple of years, I think they care just as much, probably more, than anyone. Knick fans, anybody who's wondering about their care factor, it is probably higher than yours, just as high as yours. They want to win, and so whatever they're doing off the court, I don't think they're going to let it take away from anything that they have to do on the court. That's just my read on it, just spending some time around these guys. And so, yeah, no shows during the games. They're locked in.
The next show should be with Tibbs so they can figure out how to execute these defensive coverages in crunch time and not let Dennis Schroeder walk into a game-sealing three-pointer. That was deflating last night, and it's just more of what we saw over the course of this season. These guys, for some reason, are just not on a string defensively in the biggest moments, and that is why there has to be some sort of adjustments. I got to get the block nest monster in there and try to have our best defenders out there, Ian, because look, it's one thing to know that your best two players in Brunson and Cat aren't the most savvy defenders, but Hart is now compounding the issue. So they've got some issues there that they've got to adjust.
Adjustments. Anything else from you, Matt?
That's what I got. Although I will say, Ian, like CP and I, we've been Knicks fans a long time. Josh and Jalen, as much as we love them, they weren't here when they were winning 17 games. So, listen, we know they care. Don't get me wrong. But, just saying.
Yes. Well, my only point was, like, their passion for winning and passion for their craft is at the highest level. And so, like, yes, of course, Knicks fans, passionate. They care. They've been through more than maybe any other fan base outside the New York Jets that I know of. And so, yeah, certainly never questioning the passion of this fan base. My only point was these guys are not going to do anything that's going to take away from their approach to the game, and they're going to do everything they can to be at their best. That's all.
Just messing with you. It's all good.
Mr. Spendley. All right. Thank you, my friend. Appreciate it. Guys, we're going to wrap up with final thoughts. I want to know from Kory, for you, what do you think Detroit does differently in Game 3? Are you expecting any kind of adjustments? What do you think?
I think we're going to see a different Asar Thompson from last night. I mean, I think his defense throughout the season, throughout the series, has been solid, but I think we're going to see him assert himself more offensively in Thursday's game. And I think another thing that they're going to have is that Malik Beasley is going to have to be the X factor for this team off the bench. He's going to have to shoot the ball well. He has the greenest light on the team, as we already know, but in order for them to go ahead and close out Game 3 to be able to go up 2-1, he's going to have to shoot the ball well, him and Tim Hardaway Jr. Tobias Harris, he's played phenomenal so far this season. I have no gripes with the way that he's played, and I think Cade Cunningham is going to be solid at home as well. But as long as Tim Hardaway and Malik Beasley shoot the ball well in Game 2, and they're able to get maybe another solid defensive performance, maybe by committee on Cat, they have a good chance at putting themselves in winning Game 3.
CP, how about you?
Yeah, I think Kory hit it on the money, and that's why I thought the Game 2 loss was such a missed opportunity. I mean, the Pistons shoot 22% from three, and the Knicks still can't come up with a W there. You can't expect Malik Beasley and Tim Hardaway Jr. to be cold at home when they're getting those weak side wide open threes or when they're getting those transition opportunities. So the Knicks, once again, have to play smart, get ready to be hunted again, especially Jalen Brunson, and be on a string defensively. I want to see good ball movement. And Ian, we mentioned the Isaiah Stewart factor. Listen, whether he plays or not, look at what Paul Reed did last night. A lot of times we used to clown Paul Reed in terms of how he showed up or didn't show up against the Knicks with Philadelphia. Hey, he gave him 6 points and a plus 13 off the bench. Who's going to be the Knicks version of Paul Reed in games 3 and game 4 when the crowd is barreling down on their neck? Who's going to go get the 50-50 balls? Who's diving on the floor to make sure that the Knicks are saving possessions? The Knicks, it's gut check time for the New York Knicks, and we're going to see what they're made of in games 3 and 4.
Yeah, B-Ball Paul definitely showed up game 2. For me, I'll just go quickly. I expect, based on what happened last year's playoffs with Jalen Brunson struggling first couple games and then getting himself going, I would expect Brunson to make adjustments to where whatever those adjustments are, the offense is going to be much better than it was in game 2. That's my expectation. We'll see how it goes, though. We will be out there for Thursday and Sunday, and then we'll be back with you guys with another Putback on Monday to recap what we saw out there and then to look ahead, depending on where the series is. Maybe we're looking ahead to an early Knick exit, or we're looking ahead to a second round against Boston. Either way, series has been entertaining so far. Let's see where it goes from here. CP the Fanchise, Kory Woods, thank you guys so much for joining us, and we hope to see everybody again soon.